They didn't fire me. That would have been too simple. No, they chose something more elegant. Erasure. HR called it a narrative complication. That was the official phrase. I still hear it in her voice, calm, polished, smug. She said it like she was cleaning up a report, as if removing my name from the build was as trivial as deleting a typo. A narrative complication. That's what I was, apparently. Not a person. Not the architect of the system that their entire $100 million demo depended on. Just a messy line in their script. One keystroke. One confirmation box. My name disappeared from the credits, from the repository, from the slides that would be shown to investors. 3 years of my life gone in less than 3 seconds. But code has memory. Systems don't forget. And arrogance always comes with a bill. The decision wasn't sudden. Erasure never is. It started with small cuts. Meetings I wasn't invited to. Credit for my work being handed to someone with a bigger title. Emails I wasn't copied on. The slow erosion of presence. I watched it happen with clear eyes. When a woman builds something in tech, the story is never hers for long. Sooner or later, someone decides the architecture doesn't need the architect. That the system can stand without the woman who designed it. But systems aren't built on slides. They aren't built on buzzwords. They're built on decisions, thousands of small, invisible ones, that only the builder truly understands. And they had just erased the only person who knew how the bones held together. The day HR made it official, she called me into one of those glass conference rooms with no blinds. The kind of room designed to humiliate you in full view of the office without anyone needing to hear the words. Her laptop was open, my name highlighted on the contributor list. I want you to understand, this isn't personal, she said. Always the tell. When someone insists it isn't personal, it always is. She clicked delete. Confirmed. There. Clean. Investors don't like complications. Her smile was small, tight, satisfied. I didn't answer. I didn't ask why. I didn't beg. I just watched. Because watching told me everything I needed to know. She thought this was the end of my role in the story. What she didn't understand was that the story wasn't hers to control. I walked out of the room calm. Too calm. And that calmness scared her more than outrage ever could. Because outrage can be dismissed as emotion. But silence? Silence forces them to wonder what you know. What you're planning. What you're waiting for. And I knew more than she could imagine. The demo was days away. The biggest moment in the company's history. $100 million in potential funding. Years of promises and projections hanging on one flawless performance. Every executive was desperate. The CEO hadn't slept in weeks. The board was circling like vultures. The product had to work, no exceptions. And they had just removed the only safeguard ensuring it would. Because I didn't just write code. I wrote the framework around it. The stability. The fail-safes. The invisible spine holding it all upright. Erase me, and you erase more than a name. You erase the structure that makes the system breathe. But they didn't understand that. They couldn't. They believed the narrative mattered more than the architecture. That optics mattered more than function. That politics could bend reality. But reality doesn't bend. It breaks. And in that boardroom, under the weight of investors' eyes, reality would break loud enough for everyone to hear. I thought back to the months before. The overtime hours, the weekends I gave up, the personal sacrifices. The code was my fingerprint. Every module, every dependency, every line was written with precision only I understood. The younger engineers were smart, no doubt. But they weren't me. They didn't see the whole picture. They didn't know where the cracks hid. They didn't know which threads unraveled the fabric. I knew. And I knew the cracks had already started spreading the moment HR pressed delete. That night, sitting alone in my apartment, I didn't rage. I didn't cry. I didn't drown in wine like they probably expected me to. I wrote notes. Not revenge notes. Not threats. Just documentation, detailed, precise, undeniable. I logged exactly what had been removed. Exactly which safeguards had been erased with me. Exactly why the system would fail under pressure. Not if. When. Because failure was inevitable now. It was baked into the bones. And when it came, everyone would see the truth. The next morning, I walked into the office like nothing had changed. I nodded at coworkers, kept my head down, kept working quietly on the tasks they hadn't stripped from me yet. People whispered. They knew. Erasure always leaks through the grapevine. Some looked at me with pity, others with relief it wasn't them. None of them said a word. That's how it goes. But I didn't need their sympathy. I didn't need their defense. All I needed was time. And time was already running out. 3 days until the demo. Rehearsals were a mess. I heard the whispers, minor freezes, unexpected errors, latency spikes. Each time, the executives told the engineers to patch it, smooth it over, keep moving. But patches don't fix foundations. And when the weight of $100 million came crashing down, the patches would snap. 2 days until the demo. The CEO paraded the board through a mock run. He narrated over the glitches, spinning them as quirks of early-stage innovation. HR sat in the corner, smiling like a queen, convinced she had streamlined the narrative. No messy contributors. No complicated credits. Just a clean, marketable story. But the system isn't a story. It's truth. And truth doesn't care about optics. 1 day until the demo. Executives celebrated in advance. They went out to dinner, posted photos online with captions about building the future. My name wasn't in any of those posts. Good. Because my name didn't need to be there. My work already was. They erased the author, but the signature was still written across every line of the code. And tomorrow, when the stage lights hit, that signature would bleed through every crack. Demo day loomed like a storm. I didn't plan to attend. I didn't need to. My revenge wasn't in shouting or confrontation. It wasn't in standing up mid-meeting and exposing them. That's what they expected, the angry, emotional woman making a scene. No. My revenge was in silence. Because silence lets the truth speak for itself. And tomorrow, the truth would speak louder than I ever could. They thought erasing me erased my power. They thought removing my name meant removing my influence. But power doesn't come from credits. Power doesn't come from titles. Power comes from knowing the truth when no one else does. And I knew the truth. The system wasn't ready. The safeguards were gone. The pressure was coming. And when it hit, the collapse would be public, undeniable, and irreversible. They had erased me. But tomorrow, in front of every investor, the system would erase them. The boardroom was dressed for theater, not business. Screens, cables, a countdown clock, every detail rehearsed for the $100 million demo. Every executive had their role, the CEO as ringmaster, the CTO as genius, HR as silent enforcer. My role? Erased. But my fingerprints were everywhere. The infrastructure, the hidden patches, the optimized builds, none of it existed without me. They thought deleting my name from commit history would delete me from the system. They didn't realize code has memory deeper than theirs. The stage was set. I didn't need to sabotage anything. I only needed silence. 2 weeks before the demo, whispers started. The new engineer, fresh hire, bright resume, overconfident smile, was struggling. They handed him my codebase without documentation. No map, no warnings, no keys to the locked compartments I had built to protect stability. He was told to streamline. He was told to own it. He was told I was just legacy. He tried. And every attempt sank him deeper. I watched from the periphery. Not in the office, never again in that office, but from the networks they forgot I still had access to. Monitoring logs, watching errors, seeing his frantic late-night commits. Every patch created a new hole. Every shortcut corrupted the integrity. Every fix was a crack in the wall. And yet the executives cheered him on. They wanted a star. They needed to believe they hadn't destroyed their own foundation. The rehearsal week was chaos. I saw them reschedule tests. I saw them postpone mock runs. I saw the CTO snap at the intern when the system froze during a basic load. But no one mentioned my name. Not once. They were committed to the illusion. She was gone. He was the future. The demo would shine. The investor packets promised perfection. Revolutionary platform. Scalable architecture. Seamless deployment. I knew those words. I had written the drafts months earlier. Now my words were dressed in someone else's signature. But words don't run code. And the code no longer obeyed them. 3 nights before the demo, the system collapsed. Full crash. Server loops spiraling. Database connections refusing. The junior engineer panicked. Logs filled with desperate restarts. I could almost hear his breathing through the screen. The CTO stormed in at 2 a.m. Voices carried through chat logs. Accusations, curses, threats. Why isn't this stable? Why can't you fix this? What the hell did she leave us with? That was the slip. Her. She. Me. The one they had erased was suddenly the ghost in every failure. They tried patchwork. They tried borrowed scripts. They even called in a consultant. But the system had grown into something none of them understood. A living machine that trusted only its architect. And I had been exiled. I didn't touch the code. I didn't have to. I had built it with foresight. Every corner required context, every function depended on knowledge. Without me, it became a labyrinth. Every wrong turn punished them. Every shortcut locked them out further. The demo clock ticked closer. HR sent out an email. All hands, all energy, this is the moment. They signed it as if rallying an army. But it was a funeral march. The morning of the demo, the CEO stood before the mirror rehearsing his lines. I watched the live prep feed. They streamed their practice runs for backup teams. He was flawless on stage. But behind him, the servers flickered red. He didn't know. He couldn't see. He thought confidence alone could bend machines. Investors arrived. Journalists logged in. The countdown ticked. 10. 9. 8. The CTO wiped sweat from his forehead. The engineer forced a smile that betrayed his shaking hands. HR sat straight, pretending control. 7. 6. 5. I leaned closer to my own screen. Not to intervene. Only to witness. 4. 3. 2. Ladies and gentlemen, the CEO began, welcome to the future. 1. The demo launched. Silence. Then static. Then error. The platform froze before a single feature appeared. Investors leaned forward. Screenshots failed to load. Interfaces blinked out. The CTO whispered furiously. The engineer clicked wildly. HR kept her expression frozen, praying someone else would save it. Nothing. The system refused to breathe. The CEO tried again. Just a minor glitch. He forced a laugh. But the second attempt triggered worse. Red cascaded down every screen. The architecture buckled in real time. Investors exchanged glances. Journalists scribbled notes. The countdown clock had turned into their noose. And then came the line. The engineer, panicked, slipped in front of a live mic. She built this. We can't fix it without her. The room went still. The board. The investors. The CEO. HR. Her. Me. The ghost they had erased had just been resurrected in front of a $100 million audience. I smiled at my screen. Not vengeance by sabotage. Not sabotage at all. Just the truth emerging under pressure. They had erased my name. But the system refused to forget its architect. And now, neither would the investors. The CEO fumbled, desperate. We're experiencing an unexpected integration delay. But it didn't matter. The demo was over. The illusion shattered. Investors closed their folders. Journalists packed their bags. The $100 million deal evaporated in silence. Careers ended in that room. Not mine. Theirs. The investors filled the schedule. The executives rehearsed their smiles. The product was loaded, the pitch rehearsed. And my name was nowhere on the agenda. The VP stepped forward, voice loud. Welcome to the future of enterprise automation. Today, you'll see a platform that changes everything. I stood in the shadows, unannounced, erased, watching. The board leaned forward. The investors opened their tablets, prepared to commit $100 million. The VP snapped his fingers. Run the demo. The engineer at the console hit execute. The dashboard blinked, loaded, then froze. Silence. The VP forced a smile. Minor delay. Please hold. He glanced at the engineer. Restart it. The engineer typed faster. The console spat red errors. The pipeline aborted. The database dropped connections. The CTO's hand tightened around his pen. What's happening? He whispered. The engineer whispered back, sweating. The scripts aren't here. The board chair leaned back. I thought this was bulletproof. The VP raised his voice. Just a small technical hiccup. Let's refresh. The system crashed harder. The demo data vanished from the screen. The investors frowned. One leaned to another. You said this was ready. The CEO stood. We'll fix this immediately. I spoke, my voice cutting through the chaos. Funny. That's what happens when you erase the architect. Heads turned. The board members looked at me for the first time. The VP's face drained. You, he stammered. You're not on this agenda. No, I said, stepping forward. Because you made sure of it. You erased my name. You erased my contributions. And in doing so, you erased the only person who could keep this demo alive. The investors leaned forward. Explain. I pointed to the screen. What you're watching isn't an accident. This system depended on a set of orchestration scripts I wrote, maintained, and tested. They ensured stability during high-load transactions. When HR scrubbed my name from the record, my access keys and triggers were revoked. That wasn't just a symbolic erasure. That was structural. You cut the live wires. You're standing in the dark because you killed the generator. The CTO muttered under his breath. She's right. The VP barked. Don't listen to her. This is sabotage. I smiled. No. Sabotage is intentional. This was negligence. And negligence has consequences. The board chair turned to the engineer. Is she telling the truth? The engineer nodded slowly. Yes. Her scripts were critical. We couldn't replicate them. We tried to reverse engineer them after she was locked out. It didn't work. The investors whispered among themselves. One asked flatly. Did you really erase the person who built the system you're selling to us? The CEO swallowed. We transitioned her role. Transitioned? I cut in. You erased me. You removed me from the credit deck, the board notes, the press release. You called me replaceable. But systems don't care about ego. Systems run because someone understands their bones. You tore out the spine. The largest investor leaned forward. I don't invest in companies that erase their own backbone. The board chair snapped. Fix this. Right now. The VP stammered. She's exaggerating. We can patch this. I raised a finger. Try. The engineer obeyed. Lines of code scrolled. The system refused. Authentication failed. The final error flashed, orchestrator missing. The room stayed silent for 3 long seconds. Then an investor closed his laptop. We're done here. The CEO panicked. No, wait, please. This is just a temporary issue. Another investor stood. We were minutes away from wiring 100 million. Now we see the truth. You erased the person who could deliver. You erased your value. The VP pointed at me, voice breaking. She's sabotaging this entire demo. I cut him off. You did this to yourself. When you erased my name, you erased the system. You can't separate the builder from the foundation. The board chair's voice was cold. Out. Now. The VP froze. You can't fire me. Watch me, the chair said. You erased her name. You erased her role. Now your career is erased. Security stepped forward. The VP tried to argue, but no one listened. The investors turned to me. What happens now? Can this platform be saved? Yes, I said. Because I still hold the blueprints. Every trigger. Every fail-safe. Every part of the orchestration you just saw collapse. With me, it runs. Without me, you watched it die. The chair's eyes narrowed. Do you want your name back on the record? I let the silence hang. My name was never the problem. Respect was. And you let them erase it. The investors leaned in again. Tell us. Are you willing to rebuild this, for us? I met their gaze. On one condition. When I step in, I don't report to the ones who erased me. I report to the ones who actually understand value. The chair nodded once. Agreed. The CEO sat frozen, silent. The VP was already gone. The demo had burned, but the lesson stayed. I turned back to the screen. 100 million wasn't lost. It was redirected. Away from the people who erased me. Toward the person they tried to silence. I looked at the investors. This was never a demo. This was proof. Proof of who matters. Proof of who doesn't. And proof of what happens when you erase the wrong name. The investors exchanged nods. The largest spoke again. Consider this your platform now. Their careers just ended. The boardroom was silent except for the echo of failure. The demo had collapsed in front of every investor. The numbers had frozen, the product had glitched, and the supposed vision had crumbled under the weight of reality. What remained wasn't just embarrassment, it was ruin. The CEO sat hunched, tie loose, eyes darting. HR's director, the same one who had erased my name, sat pale, papers trembling in her hands. The CTO muttered excuses, blaming servers, blaming integration, blaming anyone but himself. But the truth was now undeniable. Investors didn't care about excuses. They cared about credibility. And credibility had just been annihilated. Let's get this straight, one investor said, voice sharp as a blade. You promised $100 million in value, seamless execution, and scalable proof. What we saw was a disaster. Who signed off on this? The CEO swallowed hard. His voice cracked. Our engineering team, our leadership team. I leaned forward. My voice cut the air. Correction. The engineering plan you saw last quarter was mine. My name was removed from internal filings by HR. What you saw today was their version, stripped of accuracy, stripped of safeguards, stripped of the person who built it. The investors turned to me. Silence. Their stares shifted back to the executives. The HR director sputtered. That's not true. We followed protocol. I dropped a folder on the table. Printed timestamps. Emails. Contract clauses. Every erasure documented. Every deliberate omission highlighted in black and white. Protocol. Your protocol was removing the one safeguard that could have saved this demo. My name. The lead investor flipped through the folder. His face hardened. This is your handwriting, he said to HR, you authorized this? Her lips trembled. It was standard housekeeping. No, I said coldly. It was sabotage dressed as bureaucracy. And now, it has cost you $100 million. The CEO slammed a hand on the table. This is irrelevant. We need to focus on damage control. Damage control? I leaned back, calm. You erased the architect of your product. You erased me. And now the erasure is public. The board chair spoke for the first time. I want resignations. Immediately. The CEO froze. The HR director looked like she had been struck. The CTO started shaking his head furiously. The lead investor pushed the folder back across the table toward me. She has the documentation. She has the original models. She has the legal record. You don't. We are out. Effective today. The CEO lurched forward. Wait. But the investors were already rising. One by one, they left. Their shoes clicking on marble was the sound of power abandoning ship. When the door closed, all that remained was wreckage. The CTO muttered, voice frantic. We can fix it. We just need time. We'll bring her back in, reframe it, spin the. No, I said, standing. You don't bring me back in. You had your chance. You tried to erase me, and instead, you erased yourselves. The HR director whispered, almost inaudible, this will ruin us. I looked at her with steady eyes. It already has. 2 days later, the fallout began. The CEO's resignation hit the press first, effective immediately. HR's director followed, citing health reasons. The CTO attempted to survive, but the investors issued a public statement naming gross negligence in technical oversight. His name was finished. I watched it unfold without flinching. Every headline carried weight. Every article carried validation. One journalist reached out. You were listed as the original author of the system. Care to comment? I gave them the only statement necessary: facts erase lies. I didn't need to fight. Their choices destroyed them. The piece went viral. Inside the company, panic became standard. Mid-level managers scrambled to distance themselves. Recruiters stopped returning calls from anyone associated with the leadership team. Legal inquiries landed. Severance packages shrank into dust. And in the center of it all, my documentation spread. Contracts. Emails. Timestamps. Each one showed the pattern: they had tried to cut me out. They thought erasing my name would erase my value. They thought a woman behind the architecture could be deleted quietly. They forgot one thing. Code doesn't lie. Evidence doesn't vanish. And the truth has a way of resurfacing at the exact moment it does the most damage. The final confrontation came in private. The CEO requested a meeting. Against advice, I accepted. He entered the room broken. No swagger. No smirk. Just the weight of failure pressing him down. You destroyed everything, he said. I didn't blink. You destroyed yourself. We could have rebuilt. No, I cut him off. You could have credited. You could have honored. You chose erasure. That was your decision. What collapsed wasn't just the demo. It was your integrity. And integrity doesn't reboot. His jaw clenched. You'll never work in this industry again. I smiled. Calm. I slid a letter across the table: a signed offer from a competitor, doubled salary, full credit, my architecture intact. You're wrong, I said softly. I already am. He read the letter, and his face drained of color. His hands trembled. For the first time, he understood the scale of his mistake. I stood, collected my papers, and left him staring at the proof that he had lost not just $100 million, not just his career, but me, the one person who had built the very foundation of his dream. The company collapsed within the quarter. Investors withdrew. Partnerships dissolved. Lawsuits stacked high. Recruiters blacklisted their names. The building emptied one resignation at a time, until silence replaced ambition. And me? I didn't need to speak another word. The evidence had already spoken for me. My erasure had become their execution. HR erased my name. The demo erased their careers. Final balance: justice served.